Okay, Christine, the floor is yours. We are recording.
Great. Good day, everybody. I'd like to bring the September 21st, 2023 Fire Service Membership Council meeting to order. Carl, can you please do a roll call?
I'll be glad to. Chief Reed, I've got you. Tim Diehl, I see you. Brian Adams, I see you. Rick Boisford, I see you. Chief Collins, I've got you. Marshal Desrochers, I see you. Chief Hyde, I've got you. Ed Kaminsky, are you on? Ed Kaminsky?
He's at the FCAC.
Got it. Chief King, I think I saw you.
Here.
Marshal Lund is going to be a few minutes late. Marshal Medina, Larry Medina, are you on? Doug Nelson, I think I saw you. Kelly, I've got you. Thanks. Tina from Canadian, are you with us? Okay, no Tina. Marshal Toomey, I've got you, and then Mark Wassom.
He's also at FCAC.
He's at FCAC as well too, right? And then Chief McShane is a new member that will be joining us from the IAFC New England division, and Chief McShane is not able to make it due to an existing commitment today. So he did let me know. Chief Metz, I've got you. I think Tim Schmitz is out today. And that will do it. Anybody that I missed? Okay. We do have a quorum, so back to you, Chief Reed.
Great, thank you very much. Before we go forward in the agenda, I would like to turn it over to Assistant State Fire Marshal for California, Wendy Collins, Chief Wendy Collins. Wendy, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I have some sad news for this group, and I'm sad to announce that earlier today, former State Fire Marshal and Maverick in State Fire Training, Chief Ronnie Coleman, passed away.
Wow.
He had his family with him, and obviously it's still fresh and working through processes, but it's a big loss for us. And it's to me, it's kind of, I can see the fittingness of it being our centennial year. And anyway, just a big loss. So thank you in advance for your thoughts for him and his family. And just thought I needed to pass that along to this group. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And I would like to add a couple of things for those of you who may not know of Chief Ronnie Coleman.
Now we also have our
Great. Chief Ronnie Coleman was the California State Fire Marshal from 1992 to 2000, and he had over 60 years in the fire service. So he was very instrumental for the state of California in fire service issues, including fire sprinklers. As Chief Collins said, the state fire training. So he was president of IFC during his career, and he was awarded a lifetime or a special recognition award through ICC for his lifetime involvement in the code development for the fire code. So he was very instrumental in the fire service. He will be very greatly missed. With that, I would like to just honor him by giving a moment of silence in the thoughts and prayers to him and his family. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to our guest presentation, I'd like to welcome Justice Jones. He is the Wildfire Mitigation Officer for the Austin Fire Department, going to talk to us about living with wildfire in the urban interface. So welcome to you, Justice, and I'll turn it over to you. And you are on mute.
I was limp syncing. Thank you so much for the introduction and the opportunity to visit with y'all and just share a little bit about our program. That's what I like to do and just have a conversation. So with that, if it's okay, if I can share my screen, I'll go ahead and do that.
Yep, you should have control, Justice. Thanks.
Okay. Give me just a second to locate that. Got it. Are y'all able to see my screen okay?
Yeah, you're up.
Okay,
Yes.
great. All right. Well, again, my name is Justice Jones. I'm the Wildfire Mitigation Officer for the Austin Fire Department and the City of Austin. I'm honored to be here today and just share a little bit about our journey towards being resilient to wildfire risk, which you all know is an ongoing journey. I got my career started in wildland fire in the late 1990s in a little village called Ruidoso, New Mexico, which at the time was one of the most at-risk communities across the country. And I've been using what I learned in that community ever since to help enhance community wildfire resiliency. So I'd like to just jump right into our Austin story. A little bit of background. Austin's a major metropolitan area if you hadn't been here. If you have been here, you've probably experienced gridlock and traffic jams. And that's our day-to-day here. We've got over 1 million people in the city itself and 2.3 million in the county area surrounding us. So very high population. One thing that's unique about Austin related to the rest of the state of Texas is about 97% private lands. So what that means is we don't have federal partners that we could just pick up the phone and say, hey, it's time to do your mitigation work. Please get started at your earliest convenience. We're dealing with lots of property owners, private landowners, commercial property owners. So it's a real mosaic of land management types that we see. And Austin's risk is significant. The recent CoreLogic report indicated that outside of California, Austin has the highest potential for economic related wildfire losses, meaning the cost to recover would be astronomical here in Austin if we were to have major impacts. And we have over 91,000 homes that were identified just in that report as being at high risk. And so we certainly have our share of wildland urban interface. As I mentioned, we're a little bit unique in that about 30% of our land is in conservation easements, in contrast to the rest of Texas. So we have a permanent built wildland urban interface, or areas where homes meet or intermingle with wildland fuels. So it creates a real recipe for potential losses for us. And part of the way that we recognize that risk is through going through the risk analysis process. So we could develop a common operating picture amongst our cooperators or fellow members of the fire service of what the problem really is. And at least we can move forward with that common understanding of where the risk lies. So our first step in our journey was to quantify that wildfire risk to help us tell that story. A little bit about our fire environment in Austin. Our modeling indicates, and reality has illustrated this, that we'll have multiple simultaneously starts across the area. And traditionally, when Austin's burning, the state's burning. So our traditional resources that we rely on traditional structure fire, where everybody could show up en masse, they're all having their own fires at the same time. So one of our first levels of recognition is we might just be in this on our own. So we'll experience multiple simultaneous starts across the landscape. Many of those fires are relatively small, but our history indicates it doesn't take a large fire to result in significant losses. And we almost always have more exposures in the form of structures at risk, and then we have available resources. So all that's a recipe for significant losses. So when we were looking at the wildfire risk in Austin, what came to light is our priority in the fire service is always going to be life first, right? And it's hard to imagine that other people get up and start their day without that being their priority. But that's the reality we live in. Some folks wake up and their biggest concern is who's going to save the trees today, or what's the status of our economy. And so what we worked really hard to do is to take that risk assessment and expand it to other values in our community and illustrate to them how wildfire can affect them and their values, knowing that not everybody has the same set of values as emergency services and the fire department. Some of those values might be things just like historic sites or homes and businesses, not just residential structures, but how are we relating to our commercial environment. In our watersheds, we have a lot of acute watersheds in Austin. It's the repetitive flood loss capital of the world. And so a wildfire in one of these acute watersheds is going to exacerbate our downstream impacts of flooding. So how do you make wildfire everyone's fight? And part of the process for doing that is recognizing that this is an issue that the fire service in and to itself can solve. It takes a collaborative approach. It takes engaging non-traditional partners in solving this issue. So we've got our standard players in community resiliency and preparedness, the fire department, emergency management, land managers, working with our elected officials to gain buy-in and leadership intent, working with community groups like our Firewise communities. Austin leads the state in the number of nationally recognized Firewise communities. So how do we build consensus at all levels of our community so we have buy-in at all levels of our community? And it's a recipe for relating wildfire risk to people's roles and responsibilities. And I'll give you one quick example of that. In Austin, our city council is a 10 district council. That means each council member has a geographic area of responsibility. It wasn't always like this, but we had a shift in our coverage. And so what that means is we can now put wildfire in the geography of elected officials. So for the first time, our council members know exactly how many constituents are at risk in their communities. And we also make sure and inform the constituents of their risk so they can encourage city leadership to support efforts to mitigate that wildfire risk. So that's just one example of how we take that risk map and put it in the geography or context of the audience that we're hoping to engage. So those partnerships and collaborations have been key to our success. We participate in the city's climate resiliency plan, our urban forestry plan, the city's comprehensive plan, which directs how we're going to grow and expand as a community. Our Austin Green Building program, we've got a rebate program for folks that are constructing homes out of ignition resistant material and best practices. We work to educate the private sector and those that are providing mitigation services for our communities through our Grow Green professional development program. And so if you're a landscape architect, we have a class that you can attend that'll help you show up for your customers in a way that's inclusive of wildfire. We've developed the first city-county wildfire evacuation plan in Texas and got opportunities to exercise that plan this year. In addition to our hazard mitigation plan, we have a comprehensive community wildfire protection plan that includes the city and the county, because we know wildfires, you got to draw a line somewhere, but wildfire is not going to stop at those jurisdictional boundaries. And a lot of our risk and interface originates with our county partners. So we wanted to be inclusive of those who manage our wildland urban interface. One of our most recent efforts resulted in a NIST funding for $2.5 million to enhance the city's climate resiliency. That was based off of our wildfire model. So these partnerships really pay long dividends and are very helpful for us implementing the strategic elements of our program, which are based on the National Cohesive Wildland Fire Management Strategy. Many of you may be aware of that strategy, but boiled down, it focuses on ensuring that communities can experience fire without major loss of life or property, that our landscapes are resilient and bounce back after fires as quickly as possible, and hopefully benefit from some of those fire effects, and that we have an effective response to these wildfires, putting public and responder safety as our highest priority over structures and natural resources. So what's the fire service role in all of this? How do we know how to meaningfully engage? I think one of our first roles is provide situational awareness for ourselves and our partners. One of my favorite philosophers once said that knowing is half the battle. I'll let y'all guess who that is. But for what that means for us is we have to understand the risk to be able to get buy-in from others. We build that situational awareness through our planning tools like that risk assessment. big part of our responsibility is to pre-plan our response. And so we're not behind the eight ball when a fire occurs, and we have plans in place for our communities at risk, including how we're going to evacuate those communities and account for them. And I'm happy to share more details on each of these models. One thing that's really important and is difficult for the fire service is to create a realistic expectation of outcomes, because our expectations are we're going to be able to handle whatever's in front of us. And then when we show up, things are going to get better. But the reality during wildland fires is we're almost always outpaced by the fires and the number of exposures that are threatened in these events. So being honest with the public and leadership and creating realistic expectation of outcomes is a difficult task, but it's important that we're honest about what our challenges are and what support we need to be most effective. And then as we work with our partners in the city, our land managers and others, we want to leverage that mitigation into operational advantage, meaning we tell our operations that the work we're doing as a wildfire division is creating an environment that lends itself to operational success. And so if you don't know about the fuels mitigation that we're doing in neighborhoods, how are you going to leverage that? And that also feeds our pre-planning. And ultimately, our goal is that results in communities that we can defend and lives that we can save in these catastrophic events. So some of the tools we use, just real briefly, I mentioned community wildfire protection plans. That's our strategy for embodying the national cohesive strategy at the local level, and it identifies mitigation measures that we can take as a community to reduce wildfire risk. Evacuation planning. We utilize the National Fire Danger Rating System. We like to go old school. People recognize Smokey Bear, and so you'll find each of our fire stations has a fire danger rating sign. This might not be significant in some areas where you have a lot of federal land and you drive by a fire danger sign, on your way to work and back in Austin and Texas. Because of that lack of federal land, it creates a lack of situational awareness of daily fire danger rating. So what we tell the public and media in Austin, if it's high fire danger, that's your first warning for evacuation, and you should prepare accordingly. Our local fire departments, including AFD, are working towards aligning with the NWCG, or National Wildfire Coordinating Group standards, to make sure that we can plug and play and at a national and state level when we're assisting with operations. We work to implement strategic fuel reduction in the areas adjacent to our communities at risk. And we also participate in the Fire Adapted Community Learning Network. If you're not a member of that network, I encourage you to explore joining that network. And we use the IAFC Ready, Set, Go guide as our template for grassroots education, and amongst other tools. So just a little bit about the tools we're using to implement wildfire mitigation. And now I want to talk briefly about some of the strategies. One of our core strategies was to improve wildfire-related coordination, capacity, and outreach. That started with the creation of the Wildfire Division. I'm the last standing member from that original iteration, and part of my job is just to create continuity as we have staff changing over time. We integrated wildfire into departmental and citywide performance measures. This was important because when I started, wildfire was 100% the responsibility of the Austin Fire Department. And as I mentioned, it's not an issue that we can single-handedly solve. So we worked really hard to build wildfire performance measures into our department and the citywide performance measures. So wildfire is now everyone's job. We trained our operations staff in wildland firefighting as a platform, and we're moving for cultivating those qualifications based on experience and training. We developed a comprehensive wildfire strategic plan that fed our city and departmental strategic plan, as I mentioned. And then we organized a local wildfire coalition to help implement our community wildfire protection plan. That involves the fire service, but we're also at the table, our emergency managers, our land managers, public officials, leaders from community organizations. And so representative of a diverse collaborative group working to implement their role in the cohesive strategy. The second strategy is improve city staff and public understanding of wildfire risk. Part of that is through the adoption of the Community Wildfire Protection Plan by our city council and our county commissioners. That gave us leadership intent to pursue the recommended mitigation measures within that plan. From there, we worked to refine our wildfire risk on a local level to include our vulnerable populations. So when we traditionally think about wildfire risk, we think about the factors that lead to risk, like topography and fuels and structure density. we're also thinking about the community members that would have a difficult time recovering from wildfire, i.e. more vulnerable to the impacts of wildfire, both directly and through secondary impacts like smoke. We created a wildfire hub, which I'll share a link that you can visit that shares that local wildfire mitigation efforts with the public, with our community leaders and our partners. We participate, as I mentioned, in numerous interdepartmental and interagency working groups and planning teams. And we've integrated wildfire into the Austin Climate Resiliency Plan. That's important for us because our city leadership has made climate resiliency a high priority. In their effort to decide where to start, we wanted to step up to the plate and say, look, wildfire mitigation is climate resiliency. We're already trigger ready. We have the best practices. We just need the resources and support to implement that. And it is one of our biggest threats. And so our risk analysis was quintessential for us to get the resources that we have. So one of the final strategies, and really important because this is where you have lasting effects. Education is important, vegetation management is important, but they're ephemeral. So we wanted to create a permanent impact in reducing wildfire risk. We've done this through improving land use regulatory tools and trying to leave no aspect of that planning unturned. One of the most important and significant aspects of that is the adoption of the Wildland Urban Interface Code in 2019. My understanding is Austin is one of the largest municipalities to have adopted that code. And that was a long process. It started back in 2014 when I joined the wildfire division. And I questioned the subject matter experts before me who had made an effort to adopt the code. And I listened to the lessons that they had learned and integrated those into our strategy. One of those lessons was don't miss anyone. Don't underestimate the power of general groups and audiences to be a barrier to the success of code adoption. And so we spent a tremendous amount of time building relationships, making friends, having lunch, going to meetings, talking about the ins and outs of the code. So we made sure that everybody was going to be on board and supportive as possible, including our Home Builders Association, which was integral in the code adoption success. As a part of that, we added a wildland urban interface overlay to assist our development community and our planners in identifying where those wildland urban interfaces areas exist and where the code should apply. We made recommendations for revisions to the Austin's Land Development Code. And so we can ensure that we have appropriate ingress and egress in our communities, that we have access, that we have appropriate street widths, the things that you can address during the land development code process. And all this can be found at the link below, which I'll share this PowerPoint with Carl and the team, and I'm happy for anybody to have a copy. So what was really important, as I mentioned, was aligning our WUI code adoption with our community values. That started with the risk assessment. That included making sure that we considered equity. We didn't want the WUI code to be a tool for gentrification or making it more difficult for underserved populations to exist in an already high cost of living environment. So a heavy effort was on affordability and getting the code down to what was most sensible for us and would have the biggest impact. We want to be innovative, and as I mentioned, we're one of the first major municipalities to adopt the code, but we extended some of the code language to include an ember protection zone out to 1.5 miles from our structures at risk, because we know embers are a leading factor in home losses and an important aspect of ignition resistant construction. One of our community values is sustainability and resiliency. And so homes that are built not to burn and not to impact the environment after they burn increase that resiliency. There's nothing less sustainable than a home that's built to burn. So proactive prevention, the WUI code reduces potential for wildfire related losses. And our hope is as we build and develop new communities, they become the buffer for our existing more at risk older communities while we're working to retrofit those communities. And it requires community trust. I think those relationships and that trust we built was the most essential aspect of our process in exploring and adopting the code. I also mentioned our evacuation planning. We know as life safety folks that it's during these evacuations that we have the highest probability of fatalities associated with wildfire. And so putting life safety first, we wanted to make sure that we have a plan in place and that we're exercising that plan to make sure that it's going to accomplish our goals. We're also done analysis and identified all the limited ingress and egress neighborhoods in our community that would have challenges with evacuation, and we're reinforcing the need for structural hardening in those areas as the last resort survival mechanisms. If you can't evacuate, then protecting your home becomes more about protecting you than just your home, and that has really resonated with people. How do you create a safe space for yourself and give yourself as many options as possible in these dangerous scenarios? This just illustrates the extent of our wildland urban interface. We have over 647 miles of linear interface, and the gradation in colors is indicative of the structure separation density. It's one of the elements that we built into our WUI code map in 2019 that I think is now reinforced by the NIST hazard mitigation methodology, that the closer the structures are, the higher likelihood of a conflagration. And so we wanted to identify those areas and make sure that we had our finger on that unique type of risk that we're seeing playing out all across the country. So building support for the adoption, finding a champion for us was really important. That turned out to be one of our council members who didn't initiate the adoption process, but quickly heard from her constituents.
Engine 46.
I am at the
Engine
fire station, so I
47.
apologize. My apologies. I'm working at a fire station. It's a real fire station. We had a call. So apologize for that interruption. So it was really important for us to have someone on the dais that could support this effort, that can direct other departments to be meaningfully engaged, and be a champion throughout that process. That happened because we put the wildfire risk in the geography of that individual, and they had a personal recognition of their responsibility. So having that champion is going to be key for any future success. Knowing what's already in place that you can leverage for wildfire safety is also really important. We wanted the code to be exactly what it needed to be and not more, and eliminate all the redundancy that we could. So we have a fire code in place. So our adoption process means we took everything out of the WUI code that was already covered in other code. One of the things was critical for us was to get buy-in from building officials. And that process involved the building official requesting a letter from the Home Builders Association that they were going to support the Wildland Urban Interface Code. So getting that support at all levels really critical. With that, I just kind of want to wrap up with a few of the lessons learned through this process. And that's, first of all, start with a shared understanding of wildfire risk, regardless of what mitigation measures you're going to implement, whether it's education or fuels reduction or structure hardening. Having that platform for understanding risk is critical. Remember, it's about people, relationships, and trust, not about buildings. The built environment will follow our consciousness. So if we can change people's minds into feeling empowered and understanding their role in wildfire adaptation, that built environment will follow. Demonstrate what success looks like through voluntary measures. Before we pursued the adoption of the WUI code, we worked with our Austin Green Building program to integrate structural hardening into their ratings. And that means developers got a discount on their permits, and they got bragging rights that their home was built to a green building standard. That process became really important when we were working with our Home Builders Association, because they weren't convinced that they could do this and that the cost wouldn't be exorbitant. When we were able to share with them that they'd already been doing this on a voluntary basis, that changed everything. And so look for ways to demonstrate what that looks like. It might be just finding a home that survived a wildfire that's hardened and using that as a talking point for the community. It doesn't necessarily have to be something happening locally. Have a trusted point of contact to communicate with stakeholders and public. In this case, that was shared between myself and my WUI coordinator, and we kind of divided and conquered those audience. But there was always somebody that was at the end of this process that someone could reach out and contact and head things off early. I think timing is really important for us. That was everything. I think the fact that we were able to align with what was happening in the rest of the world during our adoption period during 2019, major fires were happening out west, and it added a sense of urgency for us. But what I would recommend is it's going to take time and energy and effort to get a WUI code ready for adoption. So do that work now, and then when the timing's right, you'll be ready to move that forward, and you'll have the answers your community is looking for. And most importantly, ask for help early and often, because you will surely need it throughout this process, whether it's the WUI code adoption or just having a wildfire program in place. What I'd like to say is you don't need a wildfire division to have a robust wildfire program. In fact, much of this can be integrated in your existing community risk reduction efforts or prevention efforts. And so don't hesitate to get started on this path just because you don't have dedicated resources. Having that risk map and illustrating the need is the mechanism for getting the resources that you need. And our battle cry in Austin is wildfire is everyone's fight. And these aren't just logos, they're partners, and they're meaningfully engaged in that fight against wildfire. My contact information will be in the PowerPoint, and I'll be happy to share that with you. And then finally, I encourage you to visit the Austin Wildfire Hub, as that's where we warehouse all of the work that we're doing to make sure that it's transparent to the public, to our partners and our community leaders, that we're taking wildfire serious, and they should as well. So with that, I'll release control and stop sharing.
Justice, thank you very much for that very informative presentation. It was very well broken down to help anyone else who may not have a program be able to learn from what you experienced. I do want to open it up to the group for questions, and I will open it up with one question for you is, when you were in the middle of the adoption process and how you were working with the community, you know, you outlined very well how what your considerations were with regard to your relationship with the communities. How did the communities respond after the adoption to any programs or enforcement, whether it be home hardening or defensible space or vegetation clearing? How was that response back? And was it what you anticipated, or did some of the communities kind of throw you a curveball with how they were responding to the new requirements for them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because the code's not retroactive. We're mainly dealing with new development and major retrofits. But on the eve of the code adoption, members from our Firewise community showed up at council and said, we need this code. We need it for ourselves. When we remodel, we need it for our new neighbors so they can build in a way that's wise and compatible with our environment. And so mostly positive on that end. The deal that we made with the developers and the builders is that we wouldn't slow down the permit process. In fact, they are much less worried about cost as they were time, because time is money as well. And so the feedback that we got was that the process seemed to be working. There were some challenges in acquiring materials because this is a new market for Austin. We had to borrow Chapter 7 from California, which is their wildfire material rating list. And so building that list took time. So there were certainly some growing pains, but by and large, the feedback has been positive from the community, especially in light of some of the sensible density ordinances that our city's passing, where you're now allowed to add additional dwelling units to your property. And maybe you like that, maybe you don't, but most people don't like it when it's happening on the other side of the fence. And so they wanted to know that those structures are going to be hardened as well. And so it's really been a balancing act, but by and large, the community's been receptive to the code. It's been some challenges for them to understand the nuances, but all in all, the community's been very appreciative and receptive.
That's great to know. That's really, because I know from experience that's a very big hurdle if you don't have that. So congratulations to you and the department for the success that you've had so far. So with that, I'm going to open it up to the group. If you have any questions for Justice, please raise your hand and I will call on you on the order as the order they come in. Yes, Wendy.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for your presentation. A lot of our messaging is the same. So really appreciate the effort. It's not an easy task to stand up a lot of these programs, especially something that maybe the fire service is known for a lot longer than the public has realized, and trying to turn public to understand that there are risks out there in the wildland urban interface, but there are things that can be done. It's a really heavy lift, but thank you for your presentation and congratulations on your success.
Thank you, Wendy. Part of that success was asking for help and our partners like ICC showing up for us, showing up at city council when it mattered, and having those conversations with some of our cooperators. And so I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the support that ICC and the fire community as a whole. I called a lot of our friends and a lot of our partners and asked them how they did it and what worked and what didn't work. And so it's really a collaborative effort, and I'm just part of it. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Justice?
Christine, I've got a quick one. I just wanted to say thank you to Justice. I gave him a call here a little over a month ago and asked him if he'd do it, and he was all in immediately. So he and I have enjoyed many opportunities like this to be able to present together and participate in collaborative activities, both in the IAFC's realm, where he participates on the wildland policy committee there for IAFC, and in many other circles. He even made the trip to Colorado to kind of talk about this very similar experience and things that Colorado is going to be going through here very shortly as well. So I wanted to personally thank him for his time, and I look forward to continuing good work with you here, Justice. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Carl. Likewise.
Great. I don't see any other hands raised. So again, Justice, thank you very much for your time. Please feel free to remain in the meeting. But thank you again for your time in the presentation.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a wonderful day and have a great rest of your meeting.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? All right, hearing none. Next is approval of the minutes for July 20th. I'll need a motion to approve.
This is Kelly, so moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All right, calling the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. Going on to our work group updates. First is member engagement. Brian.
Hello, just a quick update with membership engagement. You know, as we've done these presentations, they seem to be well received and ongoing. Again, thank you also to Justice Jones for coming on. We have a presentation set up for the in-person October meeting, which is going to involve or revolve around hydrogen and hydrogen fueled vehicles, appliances, things like that, and some of the things coming down the line. So look for more information about that. Remember, October is our in-person meeting at the conference. I will not be there, but so we'll have an in-person presenter there. And then also working on lining up a couple other presenters for the end of the year. Reminder to anybody, if you have thoughts or issues or presenters, if you've seen a presentation that might be appropriate and condensed down to 20 or 30 minutes that would be appropriate for this venue, feel free to share with me. And then the membership engagement group, where we kind of talk and flesh some of these things out, is monthly. Our next meeting is scheduled for October the 17th. So if anyone is interested in participating and joining, and that's at, I said it too fast, 2 p.m. Eastern, sorry. That's all I have.
Great, thank you very much.
Yep.
Next is emerging issues and trends. Michael.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'll make this kind of brief too. We did have a group meeting This week we had 8 people in attendance, which was pretty good. We do have a new item that we discussed, and that was mobile charging station. So we spoke about a half an hour on this subject, but what they are, basically, there's 2 different types. There's a mobile charging system that is portable, and you set it up and it's used to charge your vehicle, and it's just portable, and the military's using it right now. The other one is a more elaborate system. It's still portable, but it's more of an energy storage system. So you can set this up and you can power other things other than just your vehicle. You could set it up outside your house. You could do other provide lighting for temporary structures, that kind of stuff. That's being used by the military. So we decided we would complete one of our emerging issue and trends worksheet. And at our next meeting, we'll be discussing that. Another item we discussed briefly was EV fires as a result of saltwater flooding. And this was in response to a article that was, or not an article, an interview of the Florida State Fire Marshal on the Weather Channel, where they were having EV fires after electric vehicles were flooded with salt water. And whether it's corrosion, and I'm just speaking broadly here because I don't think there's any official cause of this, but people can speculate. So anyways, we discussed that in our group a little bit. I did reach out to the Florida State Fire Marshal, and I'm waiting to hear back, and then we will discuss that item within our group also for awareness. And then we touched base a little bit on the alternative fuel systems, and Carl did mention that at the ABM there'll be a presentation on hydrogen fuel. So that was just a brief conversation, and Kelly provided us a little bit of an update on some of the AFFF foam replacement. I guess you call it mil spec foam. So anyways, we had a good productive meeting, and I'm going to solicit everybody here if you want to join our emerging issue and trends work group. We have a great bunch of people that are working. It's a fun group, and you can either reach out to me or Carl or Christine or Tim, and we'll put you on the list. So that's my report.
Thank you very much. Next is public awareness. Kelly.
Good afternoon, everybody. We continue to work on articles that are being, we're attempting to get through marketing. We've written articles for micromobility and blocked egress, Fire Prevention Week, defensible space. We're currently working on a paper on CO, carbon monoxide in general hazards. And so every month we kind of pick another subject and we add that to our list. And once we figure out how to get it to marketing, we'll get those out to either the public or to the fire service based on who they're geared for. We've got a whole select list of different people we can send our articles to electronically. And so each article gets, you might say, a customized menu of who we think it's applicable to, and then we can send them out to them. So we always encourage anybody who has interest in writing articles about various subjects to participate. Our next meeting will be October 12th, and you can contact myself or, again, the staff in general, whether it be Carl or Tim or Christine, and we can get you connected up with that. So that's our report right now. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Kelly. Training and education, a work group. Mark Wassom is in an FCAC meeting, so he wasn't able to attend. There was a meeting. We did talk about more of some of the ideas of how kind of plans to what we want to present in the future, and trying to get into the scheduling, having the idea of doing a little bit more of a recorded webinar as well as live webinars so that people can attend in some cases at their leisure. You know, we do still have some work needing to be done on our webpage. So, you know, once that is done, and this is for all the work groups, we'll be able to put more information on, so people in the case of training and education can just viewers can go to the webpage, click on the webinar. So there's more to come with that. We're kind of in a holding pattern a little bit right now, but if you had any items that you thought were good for a presentation, and even with a proposed presenter, please let Mark know, or Carl, and we'll explore it a little bit more. All right, moving on to other reports. Our FSMC board liaison, Director Metz. There you are. Hello to you.
Good morning, Christine. We're definitely getting prepared for St. Louis. Not a whole lot to report today. St. Louis, I plan on being at your meeting, so membership council meetings will occur on Wednesday. I did want to highlight one of our insight sessions that will occur on Monday, October 9th. Will feature Carl Fippinger at about 12:25 is when it's scheduled, to provide us all an update and information regarding where we're at with ESS and batteries. It was one of our focused insight sessions, so look forward to seeing Carl do his thing there. You know, education space is difficult to get right now at our ABM. So a lot of these insight sessions have been, you know, scheduled, I will say, in lieu of some of the educational opportunities, and they're really highlighted and become the focus for all members, the way they're publicized. And it'll be a series, about 20 minutes for each insight session, starting directly after the annual business meeting that occurs on Monday morning. So in regards to you know, what else is happening, want to give a plug for the rollout of the 2024 codes. They are in the process of being released for purchase. I know that the first two codes that you're going to be able to purchase now will be the plumbing code and the mechanical code, and they've got release dates on the ICC website for the remainder of the codes all the way through January. So it'll take them between October and January to roll all those codes out for purchase. I believe fire code, it was either December or January when they anticipated fire being released there. But I highly encourage you to get your model code for the upcoming year in your hands early. The digital code platform is also available currently right now for some of those codes, and just emphasize that they will look different. This is definitely going to be an updated and upgraded look for the code. We're stepping into the world of QR coding within our model codes now, and additional information when you click on the QR codes regarding what has changed. We're used to the black bar in the margin. Now you'll actually be getting something that takes you to the digital code platform that will give you additional information rather than just seeing a black bar that requires you to go search for additional information. Our board meeting is open to all, so if any of you get in to St. Louis early, Saturday the board will be meeting. You are all welcome during our regular session. So if you all wonder what does the board do, I encourage you to sit in on that, and gives you a pretty good idea of the size and the type of discussions that the board's having on what actually makes ICC run and operate. If you may have been to a chapter meeting before in your career, it is nothing like going to a chapter meeting. And I highly encourage you to be aware of what the board is discussing. And we have no secrets there, but we'd love to see a full audience there as well. With that, I'm open for any questions, but just not a whole lot of information from our last meeting that's new and exciting to share.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions for Randy?
And I didn't see if there were any other board members on the call if they wanted to chime in, but I was monitoring 2 meetings at one time and didn't get a chance to look at the attendance list here.
All right, well, thank you very much for your report, and we will see you in St. Louis. I don't see any other board directors here. So with that, I will move on. Report from the chair. Everything I wanted to discuss is otherwise in the agenda. So I'll move on to report from the vice chair, Tim Diehl.
Yeah, hello, everybody. As Randy stated, I'm also double meted right now. The Regional Automatic Fire Alarm Association meetings going on with was a roundtable with AHJs. But otherwise, just dealing with continuity and outreach, which I'll go over later on, as well as doing the charter review that's kind of hanging out there. For you, those of you who don't know, there's kind of a movement to review all the charters for all the membership councils. And that's going on right now. More than likely, it won't be completed by St. Louis. So there may be a small report saying where the progress has been done so far, but that's probably about it. Other than that, it's, maintain and see everybody in St. Louis.
Great, thank you very much. Staff liaison report, Carl.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks, everyone. Good to see everybody today. Kind of a healthy update. We got a lot of things going on here, so I'm going to try to cover them pretty rapid fire. As you heard a little bit from Randy, we are making progress on the battery and energy storage front. We've got the draft committee selected, and it's out for review with our CEO and with Russ Manning, our SVP of Tech Services, and that will be presented to the board at their October meeting in St. Louis that Randy was talking about. So more to come on that, but we do have draft names for the committee, and as soon as we do have approval to move forward, we'll be starting to schedule meetings, and we'll be sure to get this group and other interested parties all the information on that. Thanks to those that applied, we received over 60 applications. We also reached out to a selected set of folks that we know have unique skill sets as well. So we did have a very good turnout for that, and I think the committee is going to have really good representation, very balanced representation amongst everyone from regulators to generally interested folks all the way through our manufacturing partners as well too. So that's the quick update on battery and ESS. Last week, I spent the week in Maui following the Maui wildfires. A couple things happened there. First thing that kind of got us on the ground was first and foremost looking out for our members. Myself and Craig Stevenson, who is our regional government relations rep for the state of Hawaii and some of the western states, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, others. Craig was able to join on to this, and he and I both went to Maui for the week. We stayed out by the airport as to not be kind of close to the operational area, but it also worked out in that most of the Maui County government offices are over in that location too. So it was a light touch on the community there that had been displaced from the fire. So we spent some time, we started with the emergency manager, who is actually a retired fire chief from the Big Island. And Craig's had a standing relationship with him, Chief Oliveira, for quite some time. So we literally went over to Maui County in the midst of all of this, stopped in at the EOC after a quick text message and spent about half hour, 45 minutes with Chief Oliveira and his staff and got an update, and also had the opportunity to offer him some insight onto things concerning alternative housing decisions and questions that they may have had, some discussion around the DRRA 1206 public assistance section that FEMA has that creates some eligibility for building officials and floodplain managers to recoup expenses for things like contractors, overtime, anything that they need to buy in terms of licensing or hard materials like PPE to support their offices for up to 180 days following the declaration of a presidential disaster, which they of course have there in Hawaii. So they were very appreciative of those efforts. We spent some time with the fire chief's office in Maui County, and in particular the fire marshal, a battalion chief there. Got a briefing on some of the things that led up to the fire, some of the things that they're facing now, and also offered our help and resources for them as they look forward, including some discussion which kind of goes along with Justice's presentation today on the Wildland Urban Interface Code, ICC 605, and some other pieces that we have to be able to offer them, and also support of their organization moving forward as they make some of the really tough decisions that they have to. And then last but not least, we did visit with the building official in Maui County and his staff. They are really kind of bracing for what is to come in terms of the rebuilding effort and some of the discussions with the community, but also looking at expanding their staff and being able to accommodate the numbers of applications and permits and plan reviews and those kinds of things, and of course inspections that will come as part of this rebuilding process. So it was a good early opportunity to be there, and really hats off to our partners at UL for providing us an opportunity to be over there, particularly the Fire Safety Research Institute. Early on in this, I had some good discussions with Steve Kerber and with Derek Alconis from FSRI through my work as part of the WUI Advisory Committee to FSRI, and offered ICC's assistance to their efforts. They are working under a contract with the Hawaii Attorney General's office at the state level through the governor to put together an after action report on this incident. And I raised my hand to be able to help with writing the chapter that essentially is a snapshot of where codes and standards stood, both with the building officials and with the fire department and with the state through their building code council and the state fire council, really the day before the fire. So a lot of that is publicly available information, but it's, as we all know in this community, a little hard to come by and understand. So trying to break that down and package it up so we can give a very accurate snapshot of where things stood from the regulatory standpoint and what the organizations look like, both at the state level and at the county level in the days ahead of that wildfire. So we're being very careful regarding attribution. Obviously, Maui County and the state are being very careful about when information is released, so we're not speculating, but we are really at ICC very thankful for the ability to be able to support FSRI in this venture, and we'll see where that heads here in the future. So I know that they are very focused on getting this work done within a year following the incident. I'm going to share with you really quickly. I was reached out to by Chief Tanya Hoover at the U.S. Fire Administration, and she reminded me of some things that had occurred, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There's a couple of line of duty death reports that are of significance that were shared out previously by the USFA and their staff. So let me throw my screen up here, and I'm going to email this information out to everyone too following the meeting. So there are a couple of reports that were released on the issue of corrugated stainless steel tubing, or CSST. I will come back to this code note here in a moment, but the whole goal is to kind of show you where the ICC has been on this. So the first piece of this is the line of duty death investigation that was done by the ATF on the Nathan Flynn line of duty death in Howard County, Maryland. I'm going to go ahead and put all of these links in the chat, and then you'll also receive a follow-up email from me later on. But this fire was, the cause and origin around this was lightning strike, and then conducted through CSST in a home. So a good read, good information for folks. And then I'm also breaking out the Howard County investigative report on the line of duty death for Lieutenant Flynn, and then also a related death in the state of Maryland in Frederick County. Same style of cause and origin for this fire around CSST that unfortunately ended up in the death of Captain Joshua Laird, who was promoted posthumously to battalion chief after the incident. So I'm going to put all this in the chat, but really why I bring it up is because CSST has been addressed by the International Code Council, and we do have, I'll put this code note in there and also send it as an attachment to the email, but it's a really good reminder, particularly given that the ATF and USFA have recently spent a bunch of time taking the deep dive on the CSST issues. So for those of you that don't know, the CSST provisions really came about, I believe, in 2018 to upgrade both the essentially the code requirements around coding and bonding or grounding for CSST. So what many are familiar with is this yellow CSST, which I in fact have in my home. You can see it here. Connected to a hot water heater. I have a very similar attachment here in our home, both to our hot water heater and to our fireplace. So it was a good reminder to me to upgrade that. But I also have newer CSST that is jacketed and bonded that went by code when we installed a new gas stovetop in our home just a few years back. So we've got a combination of both. It's probably a good idea on a personal level for all of you to check on that, but then also look at the retrofit and upgrading of any existing yellow CSST that you have in your home to avoid some of the things that happen in all of those reports that I just shared with you. So this is a pretty comprehensive code note around what the issue is. There is a lot of CSST, yellow jacketed CSST in existing homes, out particularly in older neighborhoods and in older communities. So that is something that the code is really not touching, but there is, as I showed you here in the back of this code note, not only the education on it, but a discussion of retrofit, and it is a fairly simple, easy, and cost-effective retrofit to be done. In my house, we already do have the grounding and bonding covered, so it's just a matter of running new pipe and then joining that bus bar for the ground. So I'm going to get that done here pretty quickly, and it was a very good and timely reminder. So I will send that information out to everyone. I'm sure there may be some questions or comments on that. We can take those right after I'm done with just a couple more updates. So where do we go from here? I am headed out to the FEMA's National Advisory Council meeting next week in Salt Lake City, where we'll be meeting with the FEMA administrator and proposing the recommendations that our group of 35 have put together in 4 work groups over the past year in terms of things where we feel there may be good effort and impact and benefit to the agency moving forward. So I will be participating in that meeting next week, and then the week after that, straight off to the National Emergency Management Association, where we'll meet during the annual forum with all of the state directors and partners involved with NEMA. And then right after that, on to the ICC annual conference, where I'll be flying in for the board meeting. We'll hopefully be getting our energy storage and battery ad hoc committee approved there. I'll be there for a few days and then doing double duty, where I'll join Michael and Butch Browning and other national figures at the USFA Administrator Summit in Emmitsburg, which happens during Fire Prevention Week, which is the week of our annual conference. So I'll be flying back to DC, going up for those meetings, and then having to come back to St. Louis for a short day and a half following that. So it's going to be a really busy 3 weeks coming up here. And if you need me, the best way to get me is to call me or text me, and email will be certainly a delayed response during all of those activities. So the other thing that I will mention is I appreciate Randy bringing up the session that we're going to be doing, the insight session that we're going to be doing in St. Louis. I am going to be passing off my presentation to my colleague Tim Schmitz, who is not on the call today, so might as well throw him under the bus while he's not here. But Tim has been gracious enough to offer that to cover my presentation during that insight session. So you'll see him with material that we both developed at that, since I'll be flying back here to get up to Emmitsburg for the USFA Summit. So that is my report. If there's any questions on the CSST stuff that I just brought up or anything in my report, glad to take them now. And thanks everybody for your support. And it was really good to hear Justice talking a little bit about the ICC support to Austin when they did their WUI code adoption too. That is indicative of a lot of the way that we do business with our customers in the field. And it's a proud moment to know that we made a difference there. So back to you, Christine, and I'll take any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Carl. Very busy you are. Any questions, comments for Carl? All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Moving on to other reports. Building Membership Council Liaison. I don't see Tom Allen on the call. Next, Continuity and Outreach Subcommittee from Tim Diehl.
Yeah, and sorry, those reports hit close to home. I actually worked with Lieutenant Flynn when I was in the fire marshal's office. So anyway, continuity and outreach. We had our one meeting. We were going to try to meet in St. Louis, but that's not going to happen. But there is there is some work being done by staff to kind of use the continuity and outreach committee from building and make it into a central membership council, more or less an area for that all the membership councils can meet, much like what we're doing now, to share information. So that's the big update. The second big update that's out there is we have started using a program management software called Monday.com, where we're trying to coordinate a lot of all these efforts that we have by the membership councils. And it seems to be working fairly well. I have given Kelly and Christine both access to that site so that we can start publishing some of our documents, information, so that the other groups can have access to it. The thought is, and kind of one of the recommendations going to be going forward, is that become an open face from ICC, so that will be able to, anybody will be able to at least view that information. So it'll kind of open it up a little bit more for everybody else's use. So the next meeting after that will be after St. Louis. We usually meet the odd months or the even months. So we'll have one sometime after that. That's all I got right now.
All right. Thank you very much. Next, Global Membership Council, Rock. Good day, Rock.
Good afternoon. I have some updates and really exciting news to share from the global service. As you know, there are two overseas offices. One that's in Dubai, and then the latest one, the newer one, is actually in Australia. Different region or have different focuses. So the Australia office, it's basically focusing on business development for other ICC businesses. For example, evaluations or accreditation. So the evaluation services just issued the first certificate in New Zealand because of the new office. And then the earlier visit to Saudi or in the Middle East, and then that led to another MOU signing lately, I think in June, with the ICC evaluation services with Saudi Building Code National Committees, basically, focusing on certification of products in Saudi. Lastly, so the Gulf region, Saudi has adopted the Saudi Building Code, which is based on the 2015 I codes. The Gulf region, it's consists of 8 countries in the Gulf region, mostly oil-rich countries. Last year, around the same time, they launched the Gulf region Building Code, which is based on the 2015 I codes. So we're basically, seeing a demand surge on services and requests. So obviously, you know, we're continuing our global services overseas, and hopefully, you know, we're going to see more. And lastly, the global service will offer 2 webinars for the second half of the year. I think one is focused on accessibility. The second one is on fire topics, you know, which is on hold. That's all I have for reporting.
Great, thank you very much. That's great news with Australia. Okay, going on, we have no ongoing business, so new business. The FSMC nominating committee, this is the time of year that we stand up a nominating committee for consideration of filling any vacancies in the ICC seats on the governing committee. We do have 2 seats that we need to fill. So applications had been submitted. I have asked Brian Adams to chair the nominating committee. Nominating committee is typically made up of 3 of the governing committee members and recognition of our MOU partners. So an ICC person, an IFC person, a NASM person. So Brian and I just recently chatted. So I'm standing up the nominating committee with Brian's leadership, and we will have his nominating committee review the applications, bring forward recommendations, will be submitted, and then we will be voting on them in St. Louis to fill those seats. Any questions about that? Okie doke. So the next is the confirmation of the governing committee member in-person attendance at the conference. So Carl put out an email a little while back asking about everyone's availability to be attending in person in St. Louis. We had a pretty good turnout, which was great. So we're trying to get confirmation. Carl's going to send out another email to get an updated confirmation from everyone. It is something that we highly recommend and part of the participation of the membership council to attend the in-person meetings, unless there are great extenuating circumstances that you aren't able to attend. So Carl, I don't know if you have anything else that you'd like to add to this item.
I do. I would say just a little bit of time be super convenient today too. If we could just ask our governing committee members that are on the call, if you are planning to attend the annual conference and the membership council meetings in St. Louis, if you could just do a raise of your hand here for a moment. I'll lower your hand, but I'm just going to take that as a poll, so that'll help me. And then I'll send up a follow-up email to those that are either not on or that I'm not hearing from today. That'd be pretty helpful. So that's all I had on that, Christine.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
I'll just give it a minute for people to. Carl, you got it? Oh, you're going to lower it. Okay, great. So then the next one is actually for Carl. Our typical building and fire service membership council's joint dinner in St. Louis.
Yep, so I am investigating that with my good friend Bill Nash. We are working with, I know Ed Lazinski from BMC is looking at some potential spots for Monday evening right now. I'll make sure to pass that along to you and our leadership team, as well as Tim Schmitz. I know that Tim is going to be occupied with another business meeting on Monday night that our boss has called him into. So he won't be there. I'm going to be in Emmitsburg. So Bill will be hosting if we do one, but we are working on that and stand by for additional information. But if we do it, it'll be Monday evening. If that falls apart, I will work with Christine to make sure that we have something set up if this group would like to do something on its own, potentially for Monday evening or whenever, Christine, you think it might be best. So I will coordinate with you. So first option is going to be to continue working with BMC as we have, and see what that looks like. And then if we need to drop back 10 and punt, I'll work with you on something for Monday evening or whatever evening of your selection.
Okay, thank you. Just one consideration, when you send out the update email for everyone to respond back to you with their attendance, if you can please add a column or information in there when they are going to be arriving, so that we know, are people going to be showing up on Monday, or kind of like, I think what you did before, the days that you're going to be there. Specifically, if you're coming in Monday, what time frame you're coming in, if you're coming in afternoon, evening, dinner time, late, so that we have an idea, because if we do change it, maybe do something a little bit differently. I just want to get the most people as possible to be able to be there. Great. So one other thing that I just wanted to point out, for those of you, and Carl, please correct me if I'm wrong. So for those of you who, with the governing committee, that have registered under the full conference registration, there are lunches that are included in the registration. There is also the gala dinner that is included. Not the chapter president's lunch, but there's 2 other lunches that are included, as well as the dinner. The dinner is just a business casual or business attire. You'll see anything from, open collared shirts to suit and tie. So if there's, just to let you know that whatever you'd like to plan for to be able to attend the gala, we typically try to find a table where we can sit at. So, that just kind of happens, fluidly. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone did know what the expectation was. Even though it's called a gala, it kind of, the attire runs the gamut. So I just want to pass that on to you. Next is the membership council booth staffing request. We received a request, or there's going to be a booth at the conference expo, I believe it's the expo, where they're setting up for membership councils. So representatives from different membership councils can go and people ask questions and so forth. It was a little late in coming to us, recognizing the blocks of time. We do have, there are a couple of openings that are still out there. So we'll put that out to the governing committee. If you're able to, I think they have it in hour blocks. So if it's something, it's mainly to be there, to be able to promote or provide information about the membership councils, but we're getting more information as well, and where that all is going to be. So we'll let you know. And I know it is Monday, so it is the expo, so Monday and Tuesday. So more to come on that. Last item is due to our normal monthly meeting in December is scheduled for the December 21st. Given that it's a little close to the Christmas weekend, we're going to move the December monthly meeting up a week to December 14. And I think, Carl, you might have already sent out, if you haven't, you sent out a change already, so people probably already saw that. Any questions about the conference or anything that we've talked about? Yes, Kelly.
So the meeting is actually on Wednesday, though, is it not, for us?
Correct. I'm sorry. I think, yeah, it's actually in the next one. So there are 2 meetings on Wednesday at 8 o'clock. Is the joint membership council and elections meeting. Right. So that please plan, if you're attending in person, please plan to attend that meeting as well. And then at 9 to 11 will be the FSMC meeting. And we'll just have to look for what that room location is. But yes, the meetings are on Wednesday.
So I just wonder how many people are coming in Tuesday for the Wednesday meeting versus coming in on Monday for the other things that are going on. So
If I'm not mistaken, from the previous list, most people are coming in on Monday or Sunday. But some people maybe, I think one or two may be coming in on Tuesday. So that's why I'd like to get a more updated list from everyone through Carl, so that I can have a better idea of if we are going to have some kind of gathering, that when it can be.
thank you.
Yep, Michael.
Are you also going to provide a virtual option on Wednesday morning?
To my understanding, there is not going to be a virtual option. Carl, do you have any further update than that?
Sorry, I was trying to get off mute here and multitasking. I am following your guidance on that. We can make either one happen. I think the default is to not offer a virtual option, but we can talk about that on our next Wednesday call if you'd like.
Okay,
I think that I will leave that to the discretion of the chair and the vice chair.
thank you.
Yep.
So more to come, Michael. My inclination right now is to not have in person, not have virtual. It's really kind of difficult in
Yep, I get it.
the whole logistics of it to have that. That's why we continue to encourage and highly recommend your participation in person. But understanding, like, you're going to be, for example, you're going to be at the Fire Administrator Summit. So, conflicts like that, we totally understand. Any other questions? I don't see anything else. Okay. So the next meeting is obviously, as we've been discussing, Wednesday, October 11th. 8 o'clock is the joint membership council meeting, and then 9 to 11 is our FSMC meeting. At this point, I'm going to open it up for any questions or comments from the audience. This is your opportunity to ask any questions, make any comments, inquire about anything that you feel would be benefit for the group. So if you would like to say anything, please raise your hand and I will call on you on the order received. Yes, Kelly.
I went ahead and posted the Ronnie Coleman notice off of the secret list in the chat. So if anybody wants to see that, you got something you can pass on to those who know.
Great, thank you very much.
And I just forwarded it out to the full list as well, Kelly. Thanks.
And Michael, Michael, yes.
Well, first, Carl, thank you for setting up the presentation today. That was very informative. That was a good presentation. But I also want to thank you for putting together this paper on the CSST, the code note. NASM has been on this CSST piping here for I don't know how many years now, being an advocate to get this this type of piping either removed or get the bonding and grounding to this. We advocated for this for a number of years, so having this document is nice. So I just want to thank you for putting that together and sharing it with us.
I have to put due thanks on to the Deputy U.S. Fire Administrator. So previously, the background on that, and in fact, she's texting with me right now because I let her know that we had put that out, and I was reaching out to her about Chief Coleman as well too, to let her know we were all thinking about her, and did a moment of silence for him today because I know how close they are as well. But she reached out to me after Eric Gablix, who's the NFA superintendent, the USFA had spent a lot of time with ATF and put out a long 3-hour presentation that ATF led on the ATF investigation into both of those line of duty deaths. So it is by her prompting. I had received that previously, and I know you probably did too, but we went back in and looked for the code note at her prompting just 2 days ago, and I wanted to make sure that I upheld that commitment to her since she reached out and wanted to make sure you all knew about it. So thanks be to Tanya.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Nothing for the good of the order. All right. Well, with that, we are pretty much on time. So if there isn't anything else, I will look for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Kelly, second. Michael?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Now everybody speaks up.
That's right.
Thank
All right.
you, everybody,
Yeah.
and hope to see you in St. Louis. Take
All right,
care.
take care.
Have a good day.
All right, bye-bye.